is Anna Fochesatto, and I'm Jordan Norton, and we are students at the Stevenson Center at Illinois State University. Today we're going to be talking about our experience during our professional practice, completing our second year of our master's degree in community and economic development. So to start off, I'm just going to introduce myself, and then Jordan will go ahead and talk a little bit about his background. So I grew up in Alaska. I got a BA in anthropology and political science. I did a year of AmeriCorps Vista service at Bus Club of Fairbanks, where I was a teen and volunteer coordinator there, just building up their teen program and their volunteer system. And that was a really great and inspiring experience for me. I learned a lot about education and youth development. And then I applied for this master's, and I am now working for Up to Sports as part of my professional practice. And Up to Sports is a national nonprofit organization dedicated to inspiring youth to achieve their potential by providing them with coaches trained in positive youth development. Sports can be really good to grow and to address a lot of kind of traumatic events that youth are going through, but sports can also be kind of a harmful place. And so coaches really have a lot of power. So this organization is really great because they're training coaches to really create a positive environment where youth can really thrive and can really become more confident and can get fit and healthy, but also kind of develop their social emotional skills. As part of my professional practice, what I'm doing is I am evaluating an external evaluation in Chicago, in New Orleans, and in Miami. So Up to Sports is across the country. But I'm focusing specifically on those three cities and looking at how our impact in those cities and how our coaches are helping kids if they are improving and how they're improving their socio-emotional skills and their physical fitness levels. So that's what I'm working on. That's what my background is. Jordan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey. My name is Jordan Norton. I am a political science major within the Applied Community and Economic Development program through the Stevenson Center. So I come from Tennessee originally. I got a Bachelor's of Science in Environmental Studies and moved out to Washington State pretty immediately to start working in AmeriCorps. I did 3 terms, 2 with a food bank at Gonzaga University and another term with a community center. That's where I first got my start in youth development. We were working with kids about age 5 to 12, and it was a really fun experience for me, and I got to work with kids and like homework help and doing physical activities and just like ran the gamut, doing summer programming. It was really fun. So coming into the Stevenson Center, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do in my internship, and I wound up here at the WD Boys Council. It's a Boy Scouts council locally in the Bloomington-Normal area. They cover about 14 counties with their units. I specifically work with at-risk youth in Bloomington, in the city of Bloomington. About 115 kids go through our programs, and we do activities surrounding maybe more outdoor stuff, but also particularly pertaining to what the Boy Scouts mission is, which is to sort of prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices through their lifetimes by instilling some of the values learned through the Scout Oath and Law. The law being like a scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. We've got a lot of these little fun things to teach the kids. And through Scout Reach, it just helps kids that aren't normally able to access these programs to be able to access those. And so hopefully through those programs, they're able to better develop themselves, make better choices themselves, and we're hoping that they get a better sense of self-worth through these programs. And so like I find that we do end up doing some of the mentoring and things like that in our after school programs. So what are some things that you guys do at Up to Us Sports?
Yeah, exactly. So our training at Up to Us Sports mainly focuses on facilitating kind of these positive environments, positive youth development through sports. And so, so the process is that, a coach they apply to do an AmeriCorps year because it is part of an AmeriCorps service that they're doing. So they're getting a stipend. It's very similar to like a year in like Teach for America or City Year or Vista even, but of course they're doing like direct service with their kids. They're being coaches. They're coaching every day. And so then they attend I think our training is like 4 days. I actually attended my second week at my placement, and it's this really very intensive training on what positive youth development is, how to create a positive environment, how sport can be helpful for psychological, for kids, like psychological, emotional development. And specifically, our training focuses on like trauma sensitive care. So we're looking at, a lot of the youth that we're working with are in really difficult situations. A lot of times we're working in a lot of low-income areas, high rates of unemployment, high rates of violence, high poverty rates, and so, I mean, the kids that the coaches are working with are going through a lot of things, and so the training is really focused on how sport can be a vehicle for, or an outlet and a place for kids to kind of process those things that are happening to them and be able to thrive in spite of those conditions and to be able to make connections, those kind of vital connections with a good role model, with a coach, and with and making kind of like these good connections with their peers, and so that's basically kind of the gist of the training itself.
Okay.
The coaches are obviously doing because we work with hundreds of different types of organizations, like I said. So coaches might be placed after they go through this training, right? And even before, so they apply to a specific position in a specific organization, and depending on where they're placed, they're going to be doing different things. So we work with America Stories, for example, that has like a soccer program, but also they do poetry and they have like a writing group and stuff like that. And so coaches will be obviously coaching soccer, but they're also assisting with other parts of programming as well. A lot of coaches here in Chicago work in schools and being kind of assistant coaches to, if there's like a basketball team at a school, often they're assistant coaching teams, or at a boys and girls clubs too. We partner with them in some cities, and same situation, like their structure is very different. They're a drop-in program, and so it's kind of like that. Coaches will be placed. There's such a variety of different organizations and programs that we work with that it really kind of depends on the organization. So day to day, coaches might be doing like a variety of different things. But the focus is always sports, physical activity, and kind of creating these positive environments.
Cool. Yeah, like over here in our Scout Reach programs, we end up incorporating a lot of like physical activity as well. And I hire a staff of undergraduates to help carry out like the programming throughout the city. And we've got a variety of different locations. We're in a couple of different elementary schools. We're at child care facilities, a community center, the YWCA here locally. So we're a little bit everywhere, and we, it's fun to work with the undergraduates and carrying out the program, because often this could be just like a side job for them. Maybe they're doing like a couple hours a week, but they see a real big value in it. We've had one student who came back to work with us, and he has another job, and we couldn't give him a lot of hours, but he got another job and still decided to just work the 1 hour per week, just because he loved the kids at the location so much, and they enjoy seeing him so much every week. So there's a lot of good stuff in that continuity and getting those people in there that are really caring about the programming, and it's really been cool to see that those people like kind of come into their own in the programs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a great opportunity in our program too. I mean, a lot of the coaches are young, very young professionals, people that are right out of high school or right out of college, and they're looking for kind of a place to kind of have their first job or their first professional experience. It's really cool because in a lot of ways, these nonprofits are working at in youth development or in human development at different stages. Like, if you think about the population that we're serving, it is youth and it is at-risk youth a lot of times for Upto Sports at least. But our coaches too, and a lot of our staff is super young and we haven't perhaps had as much work experience. Part of a big part of the mission of Upto Sports is to recruit coaches from the same communities that the youth are coming from, and so also providing, being an organization that is providing jobs in the neighborhood and in the community, providing, just a lot of access to professional development. So yeah, same. I think it's such a great opportunity. And I mean, for me, doing a year of VISTA service, that's what it was as well. I mean, I had just graduated with my BA and I'd had some work experience before, but that experience as a VISTA really shaped my understanding of, what it's like to work in the real world. When you come out of school, it's like you have all these ideas of what it's like, but it's very different when you're actually doing it. What are they also doing, like different types of programming in different sites, or how does it work?
So it really varies from site to site. Some sites we might have 5 kids. That's sort of our lowest number per unit that we can have. But also, at the YWCA, there are 30 to 40 kids every time we go into the site. So we try to keep our activities similar week by week at each site. So one week we're doing like birding. We're talking about like, these are the sounds that this particular bird makes. Let's go see if we hear any or see any, basically. And we look specifically at like, one thing that I wanted to do this year was just to build like an idea that nature isn't a place that you go, but it's all around you kind of thing. Because normally these kids aren't able to get to a place where you can, go hiking or something like that. So like going outside and seeing crows and robins and pigeons that's part of nature too. So like, we would go on a little hike, we'd do like a trash pickup along the way, things like that. And we do that at each site throughout the week. And so our leaders, our staff, they're doing a good job of keeping track of what we're doing and how many kids are doing it and doing the rosters and stuff. And so it really varies in the number of kids. I think our number so far of all the kids we serve is 115 across the 7 or 8 program sites. And hopefully this semester we'll be trying to add a couple of, so those are all Cub Scout troops, which is ages 5 up to 11. And I think in this new year we're trying to start a couple of Boy Scout troops, which will be, they will be at the Boys and Girls Club hopefully, and Salvation Army potentially. We just got to take those meetings, and because they work with older kids, so that's like ages 11 up to 17, and so that would be fun to do that more intensive Boy Scouting work with those kids as well, because Cub Scouts have different programming needs than the Boy Scouts, and as the Cub Scouts go along, they accrue these belt loops, these little metal belt loops. And one thing I wanted to do this year also was to work on tracking, so like tracking their achievements, so that they'd be able to, have some ownership of the work they've been doing in our programs. So we're gonna hopefully, we're gonna start making these crafts in the coming weeks, in order for them to be able to look up and say, oh, I've earned all those belt loops at their program site, and it's hopefully gonna generate some buy-in to those kids, and they're going to be having something to be proud of and keep coming back and keep wanting to come back into the Cub Scouts and enjoying their time there. And a sense of growth is good for everybody, so I think it's good for those kids to have some sense of achievement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like I mentioned, I'm working on the evaluation side, and you're working so much more on programming and program implementation and changing and curriculum and okay, we want to do these different things with the kids and add different activities. And for me, this whole time, my placement is very much just on the kind of research side and measurements. And so you're like, oh yeah, the rosters, and I'm like, yeah, rosters. That's main thing for me is
oh yeah,
how many kids, where are they, how many hours, and we're doing surveys and pacer, the beep test, and to measure kind of physical fitness levels and all of that. So yeah, it's so interesting, to think about how there's so many different parts that go into, this work. There's the program development part and the evaluation side and the kind of human resources or people management part of it, and all these professional development that needs to happen at so many different levels. There's the youth development, that's the main purpose of the organization, and then the professional development of staff to be able to work effectively with the kids. I think the biggest thing for me though is in doing these evaluations and in thinking so much about the evaluation part is, and also in my work at the Boys and Girls Club as well, I was doing more on the programming side. And I think the biggest thing is to be able to connect those two things, because sometimes we do a lot of these evaluations for grant purposes, but to be able to okay, look at the rosters, or like you said, okay, we want more kids. These are the activities that we have. What kind of activities can we do to incentivize, to recruit more kids? Are the kids wanting to do an evaluation and to really gather some real results and make some real changes to your programming?
And when I came in, my supervisor had been here just in her role just 2 years, and she does Scout Reach and a thing called Explorers, which is like a older kids get to explore kind of careers and stuff like that. And she does that for basically Peoria and Bloomington, and she's got so much on her plate that it's hard for her to actually do like curriculum development and things like that. So I've been able to go in and do like a lot of the nitty gritty things that are often kind of hard for people that are looking at bigger picture things to do, and it's been really a good experience so far. I've enjoyed doing the work of just like trying to engage kids, just because it's there's a line where you wanna do some informative stuff, like we have to teach them oath and law to kids. That's like a requirement that there has to be, but we got to balance it with like something fun, or else we're gonna lose the interest of the kids, and then no one's having any fun,
Yeah.
you know. So on a week-to-week basis, we can't have too much sort of learning. I mean, it's all going to be learning, but like we can't have just strictly lecturing the kids, I guess, and then no fun in between.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And being able, from a curriculum or program development standpoint, to be able to combine those things in a way that is going to be really like good for the kids. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I really like this sports focus, is because the main thing is to have fun, or to play a game, or to super fun. It's super fun for people, and
Yeah.
be able to like debrief that, debrief those activities in a way to connect those things to important life skills. I mean, that's really what's hard. It's that like lecturing part of it, and it's always tough to make those connections. And so, which is why I think like this type of work is so important, especially to be communicating that to young people. But I also think that a big part of that is, this physical fitness part of it too, and what you're doing as well, like taking the kids out to hikes and being outside, and all those activities are so important too. I mean, there's so much research that shows that physical activity and just being outside in nature, standing next to a tree, is just so good for people's mental health. And to be able to teach that to children from a young age, I think is crucial.
And we've got these like, we kind of have these built-in ideas of what wilderness is, and like that wilderness is a thing that is to be observed and not played with or interacted with, and I think that we have to kind of go beyond that a little bit. But that's kind of getting off the point of after-school stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But for sure. I mean, that's the thing. There's so many different kind of concepts, and so many different things that you have to explore as a coach, as a youth development professional, because a lot of times it seems really straightforward. It's like, oh, okay, we're going to take the kids on this hike, but then it's like, oh, okay, we have to discuss like what wilderness is fundamentally, like as a concept, and sometimes these things are really, it's really tough to kind of unearth those and like super embedded assumptions, and to be able to articulate those things to children is really tough. And then you end up having to, I remember, not so much now in my placement right now, but like at the Boys and Girls Club, when I was doing more of the programming side, I mean, there's so many different things. Kids will be like, oh, we want to know how to make our own face masks, or I don't know, random things. It's like, oh, you as a youth development professional, you have to be able to respond to that in a way that's in line with your mission. But also, if that's what kids are interested in, then you have to figure out, okay, what is that? Like, what are the youth's doing, and how can I like understand their world to be able to kind of share some of the things that I want to share with them. So
definitely. Yeah, and that's I don't know. I spent the summer doing a lot of, I worked with the biology department over this last summer, and like spent a lot of time with birds. So that was why I kind of felt like birds was like an easy way to, because that's kind of what people interact with the most in cities, and it's a good way to introduce the concept that we're in nature all the time.
yeah, absolutely. And after you had just had all this experience, you probably have all this knowledge to be able to implement that type of programming. So that's really cool. Yeah.
So let's talk about kind of like what you do, what we do, maybe. What is kind of your average day? What do you do on a daily basis at work?
Yeah, so like I said, we've been talking a lot about programming, but my placement is on the evaluation side of things. So Up to Sports has we already have a structure that we do evaluations in. So it's at the beginning of the program year, we do pre-program surveys, and it's a survey tool that has been developed by Up to Sports to measure like socio-emotional skills, and we have like a set like 9 different high impact abilities that we're measuring. So things like confidence and pro-social connections, like how kids make friends, and self-esteem, different things like that. And so we're measuring those things in our survey. And then we also do a pacer test, like a beep test. This test where you're just like seeing how many laps you can run in a certain amount of time. And so what I'm doing is I have a list of organizations that are under our external evaluation, and a list of coaches, and I'm mostly kind of communicating with, and then there's like program managers that that manage those coaches, and so I'm communicating a lot with these program managers and with coaches to make sure that they are doing the surveys and the physical fitness, like the beep test, and a lot of that has to do, there's a lot of kind of coordinating back and forth that needs to happen in order to collect that data. And all of our organizations are kind of on different timelines. So some of them, their programming is like a year long. So they get a group of kids at the beginning of the year in like August or something. And then it's the same group of kids all through May. But a lot of them are not like that because they're sports specific, and so you have a soccer season, and then volleyball season, then a basketball season, and those are all different kids. And so we're kind of collecting like pre-program data basically like all year round, because we have different groups of kids all the time. And so that's basically what I'm doing, just making sure that we understand the programs that are under the external evaluation, like each organization, kind of like what their programming cycle looks like, and making sure that we are collecting data at the specific for each group of kids. So my everyday looks a lot like that. Like I'm just like communicating, making sure, communicating with coaches, like emailing coaches, emailing program managers to make sure that okay, like we have until the next 2 weeks to collect data at these 3 sites. And a lot of times, especially after school programs and for different reasons in schools, like programming schedules change a lot, and so then we have to kind of reassess our data collection plan and change a lot of things. So it's a lot of kind of back and forth like that. Then I gather that data, and we have some interns that do some of the data entry, but I've been doing some of it for this external evaluation too. We have like comparison sites, control sites that are not organizations that don't have coaches and haven't been exposed to our Up to Us training. And so I had to go and collect data at those sites as well, because we don't have coaches there. So that's been really great too, because a lot of my day is spent kind of in front of the computer sending emails and on the phone talking with people. But I've also had the chance to go to a lot of the sites in Chicago and to meet so many of the coaches, to go to all the trainings, and then also to actually collect the data myself, to the pacer test, and to do the surveys at our comparison sites here in Chicago. So I've kind of like been able to do a lot of different jobs, I guess, a lot of different helping out with a lot of different tasks, and that's really great, because sometimes that makes, like I said, a lot of times I'm like sending emails and working kind of in Google Docs and Google Sheets. That's where most of my day spent, but a lot of times, you know, I am going to sites and I am to pick up data or to get data, like do surveys and stuff. So, so some days are a little more dynamic than others, and we move on with the external evaluation. It's going to be probably a lot more working on just on the data than analyzing the data, I mean. But like you said, you know, I've also, these positions, these placements really allow you to kind of take on projects and do things that in the organization that people have been wanting to do for a long time, but we haven't been able to do, or things that are starting out, like new ideas and things that are happening and that kind of people need extra help with. And so I've been really grateful to be included in some of that work. Like, for example, you know, just this week, I've been analyzing a lot of qualitative data from some in-depth interviews and focus groups that we did in New Orleans, where we're doing like an NFL pilot program, a partnership between Up to Us Sports and the NFL, where we have kind of ex-NFL players coach.
That's awesome.
Coaches, yeah, and so we're kind of trying that out, and we did some focus groups with the kids. They just went through flag football season and did a focus group, and I conducted an interview with the ex-NFL coaches, and so I'm analyzing some of that data right now. You know, coding and figuring out how it went, and putting together a report to send to the NFL and to the rest of our staff at Up to Us to see how we can move forward with that project. And so yeah, so it's been really cool to kind of be able to contribute to all these other projects and all these other things that are happening that are growing the organization. So my day-to-day. What about you, Jordan? What are you up to?
That sounds like a lot of fun what you do. I have been since the beginning kind of learning the ropes around here. There's a lot to learn in this. I mean, it's a national organization, so of course there's a lot of fun paperwork and stuff you got to learn. But generally I'm working on either like building curriculum or working on trying to see if we've got the right amount of kids we need registered, or communicating with the program sites. And I usually try to touch base with our staff, at least at the beginning of the week, reminding them what we're going to do for the activity for that week. I try to go visit them at program sites as well. Right now we're kind of in a lull since they're out of school and we don't really have staff in town, so we won't start back programming until the end of this month. But right now I'm kind of just working on the curriculum for this next semester and trying to work on seeing how I can help build the program for the future. I've been working on trying to work with ISU's biology department to put on sort of a like biological science day in Miller Park here in town. So a lot of my job has been to just build the Bloomington Scout Reach program. The Peoria Scout Reach program seems like it's doing well, and they have funding from United Way, and here in Bloomington we recently had a couple of years ago the funding from United Way got cut, but so it's been kind of on the back burner for a little bit, but it seems like I'm helping a lot to build the curriculum. I'm working on curriculum sheets, and yeah, my day-to-day is a lot of dynamic stuff. Like, here in a couple of weeks we have a planning conference that's sort of strategic planning for the whole next year, and that's my entire calendar for that week is just being in the conference. So that's with all the staff from Peoria and Bloomington, and that should be really interesting because I'm interested in strategic planning and how organizations do that and how they go forward when they might not have liked results from the previous year. So it's been a really fun time of learning for me, and also just like developing my own skills, because I've never managed any amount of people that were being paid. I've managed volunteers before, but it's hard to hold them accountable. But
different, yeah.
Yeah, when you have paid people, it's nice because you have their paychecks, so they are definitely accountable to you in a different way. Yeah, my kind of day-to-day is like yours, sort of shifting and changing all the time. And I don't do so much data analysis right now, but towards the end of the year and stuff, we were trying to see how many kids we had registered, how many volunteer hours we had with those kids. So we had like service hours that the kids needed to rack up, and we had, I believe, about 243 something volunteer hours this last time. It was interesting to go through that process and like sort of developing a measure for that and developing a tracking tool to do that. And it's been a lot of different stuff, and I feel like a lot of times, like with AmeriCorps or with this internship, it's a lot of like learning on the job and just like responding to new things as they come up, and that's always been fun to me personally.
I think that's a big strength of being able to do a type of fellowship during your master's program, especially in the Stevenson Center. The fact that, that was a big draw for me when I applied, because I really wanted to do some research and to do kind of the academic side of it, but I definitely wanted to have some work experience under my belt, because you just learn so much on the job. I mean, there's so many things that you have to inform yourself about, and so many experiences that like change your perspective about the work you're doing, about nonprofits in general, about so many things. So yeah, that sounds really cool. Yeah, the program development part is just so cool. You get to do so many things. Do you think you're gonna stay in working in youth development after the fellowship is over? When are you done with your fellowship?
I believe I should be done mid-July.
Yeah, I think I'm done July 1st too. So yeah, fine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm not sure right now. I'm currently applying to law school. So.
Oh wow! I did not know that.
Yeah, I am. I took the LSAT last semester, and I just was working on all my stuff and finally applied to a bunch of places. So we'll see how that goes. And
that is so cool.
Yeah, I am like interested in like family law, and kind of helping to like specifically working with like at-risk youth, or like in families that may not have the resources to normally get a like good legal representation. So that's kind of where I'm at in my future right now. But I think that it would be fun to work with kids in the future, even if I don't end up going that route. Honestly, yeah. What about you? Have you thought much about like what you're going to do after this program?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely starting to because we're getting close.
Oh yeah,
But
closer every day.
yeah, closer. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I think, you know, I also really like working with youth, and there's just so many different ways. I mean, what you're doing right now, program development, and implementation, evaluation, or law. I mean, there's just so many different ways to approach this type of work, and you know, one of the reasons that I chose the Stevenson Center, like I said, is that you really do get to work very closely with your academic department, and you have the option of doing a thesis, and so and of doing some research if that's something that you're really interested in, and that's something that I was definitely interested in. You know, going into the master's, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to pursue more the academic route or to do more applied work, and I think what this fellowship has shown me is that there's definitely an in between. There's kind of a sweet spot. I really like the work that I'm doing right now in evaluation, and I think it's definitely something that, because you know, it does kind of bring together those two things of working in something, still doing this applied work, right? Still making, still working with organizations, still working with people, but also doing a lot of data analysis, also doing a lot of research, and so I think it's been a really great experience in that sense, that I really feel like that moving forward, when I start applying for jobs, I think I'm definitely going to be looking for something kind of similar in this field, where I can do some research, and also make recommendations for curriculum development. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Do you have any final stuff you want to add, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think yeah, it's been really cool hearing about everything that you're doing, and I think youth programs like the Boy Scouts are really valuable, and yeah, it just sounds like a lot of fun. So maybe next time I see you, we can go birding.
Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, Up to Us Sports sounds like a really cool program. I'm glad that it's around, and yeah, that pilot program with the NFL sounds really cool. You'll have to tell me how that turns out and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Jordan, so much, and thank you to whoever's listening.
Thank you guys, and we'll sign out here.